Today's guest is Lindsay Swoboda, author of Holding On and Letting Go, A Life in Motion. Lindsay, welcome to More Than a Milspouse. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. About 6 months ago, I got a text from a friend. She said, you need to have Lindsay on the show because she is absolutely awesome. And then I got to meet Lindsay in person, and my friend was right. She is awesome, and you all are going to get to meet her today. She's such a warm and generous person, and so I'm thrilled to have you on the show today, Lindsay.
Oh, goodness. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I know said friend, and I also feel like I have a memory before I even knew she was your friend of listening to this podcast driving down a road in Texas. Like, just listening to your voice. So it's always surreal to me when I get to, like, one, meet that person in person, but also two, then show up on your show. So thank you so much for having me.
It's such a full circle moment. I would love to just start off today by letting you talk about the season of life that you're in right now and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, let's do it. We've got to talk about this a little bit before she hit record. And the season of life we are in, bum, 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 is after active duty retirement. So my husband, Ryan, who I've been married to for 17 years, just retired from the Marine Corps in September. And so we are on month 5 sort of being out. And it has been a season probably very aptly described by the book title of holding on and letting go yet again. Just a lot of learning has gone into this experience, a lot of surrendering to the moment, of being as prepared as we could have been getting out and yet still having lots of unanswered questions, which makes me giggle a little bit now because my editor for the book, Terry Barnes, I had kind of had a line at the end where I sort of talked about and the end of military life, what will it be? And she was like, you can't wrap that up in a bow. It's just going to be life. And it will come with all new things, all new hurdles. And at that time, she's a military spouse herself, their family has retired now. And I couldn't really grasp what she meant by that until recently, where you're like, we were very focused on crossing that finish line. Last year was a huge year for our family, just in the sense of I launched the book. Ryan retired. He also finished his bachelor's program. It was just a season of side by side, working hard, blinders up, let's get this done. And I think coming off of that, we didn't realize how emotionally and physically and mentally fatigued we were. And how many, even though we'd had a lot of hard conversations, how many more were yet to come. But it's also been a time full of grace and some really good adventures with our family, and also just figuring out what's next and realizing that isn't an immediate answer for us and trying to be really okay with that.
I think it's so important because it's easy to have that idea that when we get to that finish line, whatever that looks like, whether that's retirement or whatever, that life is going to be better and that everything's going to work out. But it's, like you said, it's still life, and it comes with new things to try to figure out and navigate all of the changes, especially when you've been in the same kind of lifestyle for so long. So
yes,
let's go all the way back to the beginning of your story. And what was that like coming into military life? How much did you know coming into this lifestyle?
I knew 0%. I do not have immediate family members in the military. A couple grandfathers served long ago, but I grew up near Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So I knew kids at my school that were military, but I was born and raised in Dayton, Ohio area, and I just didn't really know much about service life at all. So I came in not knowing a whole lot. Ryan and I dated. We're high school sweethearts. So, We weren't together the whole time though. When he like went off to boot camp, we were together that first year. And then after my freshman year of college, we were kind of like, where is this going? We're not sure. And I'm not ready to like move out to you. I really want to finish what I'm doing. So we did break up for a time that, looking back now, we're like, what would it have been like if we had grown together during that time? And yet also thankful to grow in different ways while we were apart. Because I think when you get together that young, it doesn't mean that it can't work out. But for us, we both needed to like grow up a little bit more before we got back together again. And I say that being still a person that got married at like 22 years old. So there's also that.
And then what was it like after marriage and realizing that it's not just a job, it's a whole lifestyle?
Yeah, I think I was quite resistant really to my spouse role. I'll put that in quotes, for quite some time, because part of the reason, like I wanted to continue with college was that I was a dance major. I was getting picked up by companies. I was performing in shows like across America and, really getting to live this initial dream I had of a performer's life. I loved it. I felt really good and purposeful like doing it. And then when we got married, I really had to reinvent that wheel. We talked about I could still take contracts, but we'd been long distance for quite some time, and he had been on a back-to-back rotation, like in a deployment cycle for almost 3 years. And so by the time we finally got married and moved out to California together, I had an option to go take a contract. And I remember the day like setting that aside and being like, that's what's comfortable. I actually kind of need to sit in the discomfort of us trying to figure this out and what else I could do career-wise. And then I ended up teaching dance at multiple locations, and that I didn't teach at a base in Cali, but when we moved to Korea, I did. And that is sort of where I really nestled into military life and was like, oh, look at all these cool spouses that I could be friends with. Like, look at the travel we're getting to do because of this country we're living in now. And while it was hard to find work because there weren't a lot of my specialty, on the base, it took forever to get hired and pass like all the base requirements and all the checks and whatever, just to be like a contracting dance teacher on base. But I finally got that and started working within the military community, teaching children dance through CYSS. And I loved it. I loved getting to know the families. I loved giving these kids an opportunity to like experience the arts and like high quality arts, right? Like I feel like my standard is very high for teaching and like what I want. I'm not looking to form, like at that time was not looking to form professional dancers, but just really wanted to form like patrons of the arts that would enjoy the program and have a place to release and relax while they were also living this kind of like high up-tempo life, So that was really that foray into spouse life. And then I think, I don't want to talk for too long, but my next surrender would be once we had a child and then having to pivot from my job once more, right? And saying, now trying to find the sitter for the 4 to 9 p.m. time slot of your after school teachers is quite challenging, and having to reinvent once more, which we are all familiar with, but is never an easy thing.
No, it isn't. So talk about at what point, as you are going through this life and you are saying, the dream I have has to change. I need to reinvent myself over and over again. And at what point did you say, I want to take what I've experienced and turn this into a book?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I think we'll like pair that with the surrender of our first child, right? Like so excited to have our daughter. But again, Ryan was in a highly deployable season. Then we moved on to embassy duty after that. And we did a rotation through Morocco and Ecuador. And it was really in Morocco that I was like, I miss creating, right? If I'm not going to go back and teach in a studio, at this moment, which funny enough, I did volunteer and ended up teaching in Morocco. But if this isn't going to be like the normal life, right, quote unquote, that I have set up for myself of being a teacher, what else do I have to offer, like creatively? And while we were there, I started writing, which I had always journaled. I was on a creative like writing team in middle school, which I feel like sometimes our families see things in us before we do, right? At that moment, I was like, I'm not going to be a writer. I'm going to be a dancer. So I picked up writing again, started submitting it to different military publications and like different motherhood blogs. And a lot of it started getting picked up to a point where I was like, oh, maybe this is something that like I could be good at. And then I started taking writing workshops through an online community called Exhale. It's run by the same women that run the Coffee and Crumbs blog. And I just could not get enough. It like ignited this piece of me that was like, if I'm not going to perform on a stage, I'm going to like move what I'm living onto a page, right? So, and it's also how I process things, is kind of like pulling back and looking at these stories we've lived. And I don't think I really thought it was going to be a book until, oh goodness, one of my friends had someone in a master's program at Columbia University, and she was doing her final and she was making like a mock military magazine. And she was like, will you just submit something for her? Because she's looking for a spouse perspective. And I did. And that person edited this piece I wrote that's in the book now. And just her feedback, and I got to like attend this like launch party she had. And I just was like, oh, this is like a world where these stories need to be felt and heard and seen. And I want to share what we went through so that other people, they're still going to have to go through it, right? Like, I don't like to write from a place of I'm going to solve your problem. And I don't think a lot of my writing either solves my own problems, but it does like peel back layers to kind of look at like, what are the universal threads we all go through in military life, in transitions, in moving, in reinventing ourselves, and realizing like our community specifically feels that pressure and that very tangibly, but other people do as well. So that's kind of where the pivot came to be like, I think I have all of these things we've experienced. How can I share them to just like hold space with someone else and also encourage them that we did walk through it to the other side, even if it was really messy in that middle section.
Yeah. I love how you were able to pull on those threads of things that really lit you up. And, you know, even from middle school and saying, okay, how can I figure out what that is and tap into that and what is possible in this season. So I would love for you to talk about the title of your book and where that title came from and what it really means.
Yes, I love talking about this title because it was not the title of the book. Initially, I kind of had it centered around a different theme because I'm not someone that's like a professional at marketing, but I thought it was this like, oh, this great choice I had. And what's wonderful about working with the publisher I had is I felt like they're really hands-on and they really wanted me to understand like why that might not be working and why we're going to try to find something else. So I keep mentioning Terry Barnes in this, but she's actually the one that like pinpointed this title down because I felt like I was like, I don't know, it feels so big to try to name my book. And I know when people would share things with me, I'd be like, that doesn't resonate with me at all. But it was her that finally sent an email and she was like, I think what I am seeing at the end of every single chapter is this duality, is this like this holding on and letting go. It's a very lyrical process that you're writing through. You're making it these hard things sound beautiful, and yet it's all tangled, right? Like it's a both and situation, which I think to me hit home because that was a huge turning point for me as a military spouse. Was when I realized I could say something was hard out loud instead of just trying to cover it up with positivity. And I mean, I am a very like glass half full individual, but we had certain seasons where that was harder to find than others. I had seasons where my mental health was tanking along with my physical health because I just was overwhelmed, overstimulated, over everything, and still trying to find this good, but also feeling I was failing at that because I thought everybody else had it together too, which was not true.
No.
But, and I hope we're doing better about that as a military culture now. I know when I was in, when we were in as a family, it felt very much like I just needed to like take the ibuprofen and change my socks. And that worked until it didn't, right? Until we had like shoved everything down in between even the two of us in our marriage to where we weren't operating from a healthy place. So that is why it's titled that, because I do feel like there is a celebration and surrender. There is a grief and a goodness. It can be multiple things at one time. You can enjoy like the travel and the maybe excitement and the change and all the things that come with PCSing and whatever your story is that you're living in military life. It's very vastly different from everybody else's. Like we all have this common part of being part of service, but then I'm still shocked when I'll like meet spouses that like have been in one place for 6 or 7 years. Like I just couldn't even fathom that because that's not what our trajectory looked like. So yeah, that's why it's called that. And I really think it's fitting. I still think it's like goes beyond military life, which is good too. Yeah.
I would love for you to speak to what that letting go, that surrender, what did that look like for you, and what does that require of us?
Oh gosh, surrender is hard, right? Because it's hard for me. I'll speak for me. I have a dream, right? I have a vision of how I want things to look. It's also sometimes a way that I'm controlling things that I can control, which I think is a very natural part of our process when a lot of military life is like not within our control. So then I would pick one thing to try to make, into what I thought it should be. And then I would get disappointed, or I would be very upset that I couldn't meet my own expectations in different seasons. And so I think that surrender, part of it is building a self-awareness around how our capacity in different seasons might not be what everybody else's is. I'll give you an anecdote for that. It took me 7 years to finish this book. And that's because I was having another child in that moment. My husband and we were PCSing twice. Like we moved back to America, then we moved again. It took a really long time. It looks successful because it's in my hands now and I've done the thing, but the effort it took and the 4 a.m. wake ups and sometimes the me not being very pleasant with my family because I just really wanted to work on this one thing, that felt like it was my thing that I got to create. That's all part of it too. And I like to be really transparent and honest about that because I think sometimes there's a danger to like the we can have it all mentality. It's like that's to me, that's not my reality. I can have different things at different times. And that comes with the surrender.
And recognizing what season you're in. Because I know for me, the times when I get the most frustrated are the times that I start looking at what everyone else is doing and the progress that they're making and the pace that they can go at, because I can't always go at that pace. I have to move at the pace that I have the ability to move at in the season that I'm in. And that means I don't move as fast, I don't accomplish as much, and I have that choice of, do I give up on this idea or do I just accept this is what's possible right now, and I'm going to be okay with that?
100%. Yeah, you said that. That was on point. Like, just, I think too, for me, it's like deciding like what season we are in, like personally, and then as a family. Like we last year in our season of push, our mantra was everybody gets a dream here. Like him trying to finish school and retire and me launch a book. And it was very much like everybody is dreaming this year. And then we realized last year, like, did our kids do a lot of stretching last year? No, because mom and dad were doing a lot. So then this year we've really like turned focus back and been like, what do you guys want to do? Like, what are the classes you're really interested in taking? What is an extracurricular you'd really love to like explore? Because it can't always be focused on, one person's thing in a family. You have to sort of trade in and trade out. At least that's how it's worked for us. We are not usually all running, at the same time. Sometimes one person gets to sprint while the others are like holding down the other part of the fort.
But when we start thinking about everybody in the family and everybody getting a part and saying, okay, how can we become stronger as a unit by letting everybody have a season to do something that's important to them, then we're
Yes.
all going to flourish rather than if it's just one person getting to chase that dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think that you learned about yourself in the process of writing this book?
Oh, goodness. What did I learn about myself? I know that I learned that I think because of a performer background, because when you get hired for those things, there's like a stand up of the show. You're learning it in 2 weeks and then you're ready to go. And I learned I work very well in block schedules like that. Like I love to batch content and I love to work with things in a concentrated format, and then I have to like take a rest. I also really love the creation, like generative process, more so than I like the sharing about it part. Like that part is harder for me, the marketing part, the talking about yourself. That part felt like a stretch, but not a stretch in a bad way. More of like okay, I just need to learn how to do this in a way that feels authentic to me. Like there's 100 million ways to watch a video and everybody says, do this and this algorithm and do that. And then to me, it was more about learning how to like serve who this book was written for. Like I want to be on the ground with spouses. I got to do a talk on a base last week, and it was so special to share part of our story, but have talking points for the spouses then to work with each other in small groups. Like that's what I want. It's one thing to share ours, but I shared it so that hopefully it will open a door for you to start thinking about your own experience. Like I think that's the beauty of art, is like once you create something, it then becomes an offering for others, and it's like not all of mine to hold anymore. It's like whatever that inspires in you and your story and your journey. So, and I learned that like, I had a 4-year-old last year, and that was a challenge too. Oh my gosh, just learning how to wear a lot of hats throughout the day and be disciplined. I think there are seasons like we're talking about where I had a very different discipline about like when I needed to go to bed and what I needed to do for my energy. And yeah, I learned a lot about that last year too.
I think as you are bringing any dream to life, there's this idea of like, I just got to get to this certain point, whether it's, writing the book or launching the book or whatever. And then you get to that point, and that's not really the end. You keep going, and there's always like a next step. So did you reach a point where you thought, oh, like if the book launches, then I'm good, or some kind of point where you thought like this is the finish line, and then you realized it wasn't?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that point right now where I'm like, oh, this is different from anything else I've created because it is a physical product. It is something that I can keep talking about. It's something that I do want to keep having these moments where I get to share and help another group of spouses that were alongside me or coming up behind us to help them think about it. And I also feel like, is there a done point? I think you have to choose to kind of come off of the huge push. And now I'm sort of in a phase 2 with it. But then another part of this that was really good is a dear friend of mine that had launched a couple books before me was like, no, what do you really want to do after this? And that was such a clarifying question that I'm glad that she brought to me, because I had been working in publishing a little bit before this, and I was like, oh, but I love this process so much. This is really what I want to do. This is what I could see myself doing. And so in tandem with the book launch, I had been, sending out resumes and starting to kind of try to figure out how can I get a foothold within the publishing industry. And I have that right now. And the book led to that. So I think it's always really good to sit in the pocket of the dream, but also be looking around a little bit and say, once we achieve something, then you have to decide what you're going to do with that, and also get excited about the next things you're going to do. So
yeah,
I don't want this to be the only thing,
If we don't have a next step or a next goal, that's when we start to lose our sense of purpose and meaning. And if we have something that we're dreaming about or working towards, that keeps us going. And I love one of the things you talked about, in that we really find meaning when we create something that's not just for ourselves, but is able to be used to help others in some way. So what is it that you hope when someone picks up your book and they spend time with your book? What do you hope they take away with?
Well, goodness, just the fact that thinking about people holding the book and reading the book is still blows my mind. Reading reviews, I occasionally will go look at the review area, and I'm always really brought to tears by the fact that I know how much work it takes, not just the external work of the process of putting it all together, but the internal emotional work that it takes to even be courageous enough to put your story on a piece of paper and then say, here, I'm going to offer this to you and take it as you will. I have just so much more respect for writers in general and those that carry stories forward, because it really is an act of generosity and love to do that. So I think when I think of what I want someone to walk away with, I think it's just taking time to notice the tiny nuances in our life that are building our narrative. I think we've got to pause and notice the people that are around us, notice the experiences that are shaping us, because all of those things are informing what we're doing next. And that was really a blessing of moving through this story, was really looking back to everybody that had helped shape ours.
So as you think about what is next for you, we've talked about dreaming, we've talked about the threads that have led to working in publishing. What's your next dream?
What is my next dream? Bum, bum, bum. It's maybe an oversimplification, right? I do have I have 2 books on my mind that I'm not ready to reveal what they're about yet, but I do have 2 ideas. One would be a collaboration of sorts, and then the other one is something actually my daughter and I are talking about. That would be a fiction series, which would be a whole new thing for me, because I've always written narrative, creative nonfiction, and there's a scary, fun element to thinking about creating characters in a world from scratch. And then the other dream of this year has been to I felt we tumbled off the treadmill of military life this fall, and it's to just be together in a different space. I've really been pursuing my husband's friendship this year, to know each other as spouses is different than knowing each other as friends. And those are the things I'm pursuing. It doesn't sound big or flashy. And I think that's exactly what I'm looking for right now, is just to figure out what it looks like to live life on the outside.
I think it's so important because we often think that our goals or our dreams need to be about doing something, about accomplishing something. But when we peel the layers back and we start to look at what do I want my life to look and feel like as a whole, it's really about those things that make up a full life. And having that kind of connection with your spouse is such a huge component of our lives. And so having a goal around that, that's not about accomplishing something, but just about a relationship, I think is really, really important and powerful.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I feel like it's been like such a hard but such a joy to walk through this season together. Like I've been just noting little things he's observing. Like we went on a spontaneous trip to the beach and he was like, I don't have to tell anybody where I am. Like I don't have to report this to anyone.
Yeah.
And while I knew he was doing that as his spouse, I'm not thinking about it. And we went on a field trip and he came with us and he was like, this is what you guys have been doing. This is neat. And I'm just really enjoying that part. And honestly, the other night, I'm going to get like teary about it. For the first time, I was like, I don't have to share you with anybody. I'm not waiting kind of for that next. That's like, I'm not waiting for the Marine Corps to like say, or I shouldn't say the Marine Corps, the military at large, to kind of decide what's next for us. And there is a challenge to that, but there's also like a lot of beauty being revealed in this chapter of us like having this quiet moment to really think about that. So who knows, maybe that's what the next book will be about. I'm off, how to come off the service life, right? And
if so, that's the book I need to read next.
Well, it is scary, but I think everybody handles it in a different way. And I would say I'm just patiently observing. And it's okay that we're taking our time with it. I'm saying that much to my own, like trying to buoy myself too,
But I talk to so many spouses that are kind of reaching that milestone and, so many are walking through similar things. And I think it's really important just to be able to give words to that. And I could sit and I could chat with you for hours, but I have to go run pick up my kids. So Lindsay, let me just say thank you so much for coming on the show. Would you let everybody know where they can get a copy of your book?
Yes, so it is available at militaryfamilybooks.com if you want to go the indie route, or it is available on Amazon. And as always, you really help an author that if you read the book and you love it, give that rating and give a review. And I super appreciate you having me on. I'm cheering you on in all of your next steps, and I can't wait to keep watching what you're doing.